Ma'am, turn around. Hands behind your back.
I've shown you federal credentials. This stop is unwarranted.
You fit the description. Compliance first.
You're detaining a congressional official. Verify my badge.
Failure to comply.
Excuse me, ma'am, I need to see some ID. It was barely 8:15 a.m. at Union Station, D.C. Trains clattered in the distance. A light drizzle tapped the glass ceiling. Monica Hayes, 49. Stood near the bakery line, phone in hand, reviewing a briefing note. Dressed in a navy pantsuit with a congressional pin on her lapel, she looked up, surprised but calm. She paused her call. Can I ask why? Officer Todd Ramsey didn't blink. You fit the description. Of what? A woman causing disruption here earlier this week. Hayes furrowed her brow. I just got off the 7:35 from Baltimore. Ramsey's partner, Officer Leah Martinez, glanced at her wristwatch. It's a weekday morning. The station was filled with professionals and commuters. Martinez leaned in. Sir, that's Director Monica Hayes. I think she's federal. Ramsey waved her off. I don't care who she says she is. I want ID. Hayes opened her purse, pulled out a badge. It was real. Crisp. Clear. Issued by the United States Congress. House Oversight Committee. Executive Director. She held it steady. Sir, I'm a federal official. I oversee interagency compliance at the congressional level. Ramsey smirked. That doesn't mean you're immune. No one said I was, but this stop is unwarranted. Ramsey didn't move. Martinez stepped closer, voice low. I recognize that badge. She's legit. Ramsey replied louder, sharper. Fake ones look legit too. He reached for the badge, but stopped short. Instead, he looked at Monica. Turn around, hands behind your back. What? You're being detained for failure to comply. Martinez whispered, Todd, wait. This is going to blow up. Ramsey snapped, then let it blow. He reached out. Click. The cuffs closed around Monica's wrists. People around the bakery turned. A woman gasped. Someone pulled out a phone. Monica's voice was still steady. You're detaining a federal officer. I want your badge number and a supervisor. Ramsey said nothing. He guided her toward the exit. Martinez stood frozen. Everything about this felt wrong, but the damage had already started. And the cameras were rolling. Union Station did not explain who Monica Hayes was. Neither did the cuffs tightening around her wrists in the middle of a weekday morning. To understand why she did not raise her voice, did not plead, did not panic. You had to rewind years before the echo of footsteps on marble floors and the smell of coffee drifting from the bakery line. Monica Hayes grew up in West Baltimore in a row house where the television was always on, and the news was never background noise. Her mother worked 2 jobs and still made time to take her to community meetings. Her father kept binders of court clippings about civil rights cases, names underlined in red ink. Monica learned early that power did not announce itself politely. It questioned you. It doubted you. It waited for you to make a mistake. She learned to be precise. In school, in speech, in how she carried herself. Law school was not a dream. It was a plan. She graduated with honors, clerked for a federal prosecutor, then spent years inside the system she would later be tasked with overseeing. Monica became known for preparation. She read every line. She remembered every detail. When committees asked for answers, she brought documents. Eventually, she was appointed executive director of a major congressional oversight committee. Her job was not symbolic. She coordinated investigations. She reviewed agency compliance. She signed off on subpoenas that made careers tremble. The week before her arrest, she had testified behind closed doors about accountability in federal law enforcement. She had spoken calmly then, too. Across the station stood Officer Todd Ramsey, whose career had taken a different shape. 15 years on the force. Multiple commendations for initiative. Ramsey believed control prevented chaos. He believed hesitation invited danger. He believed authority had to be asserted early and visibly. Complaints had followed him. Discourtesy, escalation, unnecessary detentions. Each one resolved quietly. Each one reinforcing the belief that his instincts were good enough. Training modules on implicit bias were something he tolerated, not something he absorbed. He trusted his gut more than guidelines. Beside him that morning was Officer Leah Martinez, 4 years in uniform, previously assigned to Congressional Security Detail. Martinez knew federal badges. She knew how verification worked. She also knew how quickly a bad stop could spiral into something irreversible. She had learned to speak up carefully, to choose her words, to pick her moments. When Martinez recognized Monica's badge, something tightened in her chest. This was not uncertainty. This was a warning sign, flashing red. But Ramsey did not see it that way. To him, confidence from a civilian sounded like challenge. Credentials sounded like manipulation. Two paths had converged beneath the high glass ceiling of Union Station. One shaped by years of holding institutions accountable, the other shaped by years of being shielded from it. And standing between them was an officer who had already warned him, quietly, clearly. What happened next would prove how much that warning mattered. The moment Officer Ramsey clicked the cuffs around Monica's wrists, the station's rhythm shifted. People turned. A woman spilled her coffee. A barista froze mid-order. Ramsey didn't notice or didn't care. He guided Monica toward the center of the concourse. She didn't resist, didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "You're making a legal mistake. I advise congressional oversight on federal enforcement agencies. That includes coordination with the Justice Department." Ramsey didn't respond. His grip on her arm tightened. Officer Martinez followed her hand resting on her belt radio. Her voice low. "Todd, we should verify. Seriously, that badge is legit." Ramsey snapped back without turning. "If it's real, they'll clear it at the station." A young man in a trench coat stepped into view holding up a phone. "Why is she being arrested?" Ramsey didn't answer. Monica did. "Unlawful detainment," she said clearly. "For existing in a public space while black and professional." The man kept recording. So did two others. A Metro security guard approached Martinez, voice hushed. "Is that Hayes? Monica Hayes. She came through here last week with congressional staff." Martinez nodded faintly, then said quietly to Ramsey, "She's known. I recognize her from my Capitol Hill days." Ramsey's tone hardened. "Then why didn't she say so?" "She did." The crowd grew. A woman asked, "Why is she cuffed?" A man added, "That's not how you treat someone in a suit showing ID." Martinez saw a familiar face in the crowd. Brenda Lamont, a journalist for a local public radio station. Brenda raised her phone recording from a wide angle. She spoke into it. "Union Station. Congressional official reportedly detained by Metro Police. Developing story." Ramsey turned to the crowd. "Back up, give us space." But no one moved. This was no longer a quiet removal. It was a public scene. Martinez's heart pounded. She knew every moment now was being time-stamped in someone's camera roll. She also knew this would reach the Hill before their report did. Monica didn't speak again. She didn't need to. Her stillness said enough. The badge on her lapel, the calm in her eyes, the humiliation she refused to show. All of it was being watched, recorded, shared. And the crowd wasn't angry yet. They were waiting. Waiting to see just how far the line would be crossed. Because in that moment, the arrest was no longer just about Monica Hayes. It was about what power looked like and how people in power react when warned but refuse to listen. The station doors slid open. Cold air rushed in. Monica Hayes was led outside in cuffs, her briefcase still on the floor of the bakery where she had stood 10 minutes earlier. She didn't look back, didn't speak, didn't resist. Officer Todd Ramsey opened the rear door of the patrol vehicle and gestured brusquely. "Watch your head." Martinez stood on the curb, arms crossed. Her voice was quieter now. "Todd, we really should stop and verify. Just pause." Ramsey turned sharply. "You said that already." "And I meant it." Ramsey didn't answer. He slammed the door shut. In the back seat, Monica spoke for the first time in minutes. "If you're this reckless with someone who presents a federal badge, I fear for the people who can't." Ramsey got into the driver's seat. Martinez climbed in on the passenger side reluctantly. They pulled into traffic, headed toward the precinct. Inside the car, silence was heavy. Monica spoke again. "I'm not a random commuter. I'm the executive director of the House Oversight Committee. You've unlawfully detained a congressional official." Martinez glanced back at her, then looked at Ramsey. Ramsey's knuckles whitened on the wheel. "We'll sort it out there." At the precinct intake desk, the officer on duty looked up as they entered. He blinked, then frowned. "She's who?" Before Ramsey could answer, Monica raised her cuffed hand slightly. "Monica Hayes, U.S. House of Representatives. Badge is in my purse. You'll find my name in the congressional directory." The officer looked to Martinez. Martinez nodded. "She presented a federal badge at the scene. I advised we verify." The officer picked up the phone, dialed. Within minutes, a senior supervisor entered the lobby with a printed PDF in hand. An official internal memo issued that same morning listing Monica Hayes as one of the key contacts for ongoing interagency compliance hearings. His face shifted from curiosity to alarm. Ramsey stood rigid. The supervisor spoke flatly. "Uncuff her. Now." Ramsey hesitated. Martinez stepped in. She removed the cuffs, carefully. Monica straightened her blazer, rubbed her wrist, looked each of them in the eye. "I told you who I was. You ignored it." The supervisor tried to speak. But Monica cut in. "There will be a formal complaint. There will be a hearing. I don't need an apology. I need accountability." She picked up her bag from the front desk, walked out without a backward glance. Ramsey stood in place motionless. Martinez spoke first. "I warned you, Todd." He didn't answer, but the entire room could feel it. Something irreversible had just happened. This wasn't going away. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a line crossed. On record, on camera. And now the consequences were coming. By 10:30 a.m., Monica Hayes was back at her office on Capitol Hill. Her staff had already seen the video. The footage posted by Brenda Lamont had reached over 150,000 views in just 2 hours. The caption read, "High-ranking federal official cuffed at Union Station after showing ID." Inside the Oversight Committee war room, silence fell as Monica recounted what happened. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She printed the incident timeline, logged her statement, made 5 calls. One was to the sergeant at arms of the House, one to the Capitol Police Inspector General, one directly to the chair of the Oversight Committee, and one to her former professor, now a Deputy Attorney General. By noon, the Speaker of the House was briefed. By 1:00 p.m., the White House press secretary had been notified. At the same time, in a cramped conference room at the Metro PD's Internal Affairs Division officer, Leah Martinez sat across from 2 investigators. She held nothing back. "I warned him twice," she said. She showed ID. She identified herself clearly. "I recognized the badge from my Capitol assignment. I advised Officer Ramsey to verify." "Did he respond to your warnings?" "Yes. He dismissed them, said it could be fake." "Did you believe she was who she said she was?" "I was sure." That statement became the turning point, because within hours, Internal Affairs wasn't just reviewing body cam footage. They were coordinating with federal liaisons. The Congressional Office of General Counsel sent a letter that same evening. Official, sealed, stamped. It demanded full access to the body cam footage, all Metro PD policies on detainment, Officer Ramsey's personnel file, and it named Monica Hayes, formerly Executive Director Committee on Oversight and Accountability, United States House of Representatives. The public still didn't know just how high-profile she was. But inside government circles, the message was clear. This wasn't just a wrongful detainment. This was a violation of protocol involving federal oversight. At 5:42 p.m., the mayor of D.C. made a quiet call to the Metro PD chief. She said only 7 words. "You need to get ahead of this." At 6:03 p.m., Officer Ramsey was placed on administrative leave. The announcement didn't name Monica. It didn't need to. By then, the headline had changed. From Black woman detained at train station to Congressional Oversight Director handcuffed despite ID, officer ignored warnings. The shift was seismic, because now the world didn't just see injustice. They saw a refusal to listen. A badge dismissed, a warning ignored, a career on the line. And in the center of it all, Monica Hayes, who had once written policy on federal accountability, was now the reason it would be rewritten. Monica Hayes didn't file a complaint. She filed a federal memorandum of inquiry. It landed on the desks of the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, the Director of Metro Police Oversight, and the Congressional Ethics Committee all in one morning. She didn't call it an incident. She called it what it was: a systemic breach of civil protocol aggravated by racial bias and institutional indifference. By day 2, over 40 members of Congress had signed a joint letter demanding a hearing. Not just about Monica's detainment, about the question it exposed. How many people didn't have a title to shield them? Public sentiment followed. The hashtag #VerifyBeforeCuffs trended on X. People began sharing their own stories, times when they too were questioned, dismissed, detained after showing valid ID. Officer Martinez testified within the week. In a private congressional deposition, she said, "I knew who she was. I tried to stop it. I was ignored. That can't happen again." It didn't protect her from scrutiny, but it saved her from being grouped with silence. Ramsey retained legal counsel. The union pushed back. They called it a misunderstanding. But the footage told a different story. Congress scheduled an emergency oversight hearing on law enforcement accountability when dealing with federal personnel and protected civilians. Monica was the opening witness. She didn't wear anger, she wore clarity. She laid out timelines, badge numbers, names. She named the culture that allowed it. Then she did something else. She proposed a solution. The Hayes Protocol. When an individual presents valid federal credentials, officers are required to immediately verify via dispatch. No arrest, detainment, or physical restraint is permitted until verification is attempted and failed. Failure to follow this procedure becomes grounds for disciplinary action. The policy received bipartisan support. Even the law enforcement unions didn't block it, because the optics of resisting it now came with a cost. Within 30 days, 4 major departments across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia adopted the Hayes Protocol as internal policy. By the end of the quarter, federal agencies endorsed it for nationwide integration. Monica refused interviews, refused praise, but she did issue a single statement. I wasn't cuffed because they didn't know who I was. I was cuffed because they didn't care to find out. Officer Ramsey resigned under pressure. The department cited violation of verification procedure, insubordination, and conduct unbecoming. Martinez was reassigned this time to a new interagency training program created as part of the policy reform. She would help teach young officers how to handle credentials escalation and internal dissent. Because the question wasn't just, what should you do when someone gives you ID? It was also, what do you do when your partner is the one crossing the line? Justice didn't look like a lawsuit. It looked like legislation. It looked like a policy that would prevent the next Monica Hayes from having to prove who she is while in cuffs. The story of Monica Hayes isn't a rare mistake. It's a lesson in what happens when authority overrides verification and when bias meets refusal to listen. Let's start with the law. Under the Fourth Amendment, every person in the United States has the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. To detain or arrest someone, law enforcement officers must have probable cause, a concrete, articulable reason based on facts, not just suspicion. Monica Hayes provided more than identification. She presented federal credentials. She named her position. She remained calm. The officer was legally obligated to verify before escalating. Failure to do so isn't just poor judgment. It can constitute false arrest under both federal and state civil rights statutes. When an officer ignores clear identification, especially of a federal official, it can trigger violations under 42 U.S. Code, FAR 1983, Civil Action for Deprivation of Rights. The color of law doctrine, which makes it illegal for an officer to misuse their authority against someone's constitutional rights. But beyond legality, this was about institutional behavior. Why did one officer ignore warnings from his partner? Why did he treat a black woman's authority as inherently suspicious? Why did escalation win over verification? That's implicit bias. It's not always loud. Sometimes it whispers, "She doesn't look like someone important." Sometimes it shouts, "She's challenging me." That's dangerous. Bias isn't always violent, but it's always costly. That's why Monica's proposed reform, the Hayes Protocol, matters. It does three simple things. Require verification. Any presented federal journalistic or legal credential must be verified through dispatch before escalation. Protect against retaliation. Officers who challenge illegal escalation like Martinez did are protected under whistleblower guidelines. Mandate accountability. Body cam footage must be reviewed within 24 hours if detainment occurs without verified cause. It's not just about protecting officials. It's about creating a standard of care that applies to everyone. Because here's the truth. Most people don't carry a congressional badge. Most people don't have the power to draft legislation in response. Most people would have left that station in silence, in shame, and without justice. This story is rare only because Monica had the position to fight back publicly. And she chose not just to defend herself, but to fix the system that cuffed her in the first place. So what should you do if you're ever in her position? State who you are clearly, remain calm, and repeat your request for verification. Request a supervisor immediately. Ask, am I being detained? If yes, on what legal grounds? If no, then I'm free to go. Record if you can. Ask witnesses to stay. Document everything: time, names, quotes, badge numbers. If you're a law enforcement officer reading this, ask yourself, would you have listened to your partner, or would your pride have pulled the cuffs tighter? If you're a policymaker, ask, does your department have a Hayes protocol? If not, why? And if you're just a bystander, remember your camera may be the only witness with no badge to protect. Use it. Justice isn't just decided in courtrooms. It begins in lobbies, sidewalks, train stations, and in the moments when one voice says, "This feels wrong," and another voice chooses to listen, or not. Which one are you? Leave a comment. Tag your city officials. Ask your police department if they verify ID before they escalate. Because the next Monica Hayes might not have the title, but they still deserve the protection.